Happy Lunar New Year, Year of the Tiger. Gong Xi Fa Cai, Gong Hei Fa Choi, Chuk Mung Nam Mai. And however you celebrate at home, I'd love to wish you prosperity and longevity in 2022. To all of my wonderful clients and referral partners, I want to thank you so much for another wonderful year. And normally I'd like to invite you into my kitchen, but again, circumstances have prevented this. So instead, I'm going to take my kitchen to yours, and I'm going to show you how to cook a new dish that I learned this year. It's a great dish that's perfect for entertaining. You can do it at home pretty easily. The only specialty ingredient is getting a duck, which you might not be able to find in every grocery store.
A mandarin duck emerges from a nest hole. Behind her, her young family hatched only the day before.
Usually specialty markets and Asian markets have it, at least in the freezer section. Like this one I got frozen. This is about a 5-pound duck. We're gonna roast it up and we're gonna serve it. It's not exactly Beijing style, but it's gonna be in that vein with some steamed buns and a little hoisin sauce and accoutrements. Okay, so for the first step of the duck is that you wanna prepare it the day beforehand. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna put like seasoning and marinade inside of the duck instead of on the outside. And then we're gonna give it a little hot bath to kind of tighten up the skin. And then we're gonna let it hang or sit on a rack for about a day or, at least 4 hours so it can dry out. So that way when you go to roast it, it'll be nice and crispy on the outside and juicy on the inside. So here's kind of all the ingredients we're gonna need. We want a little garlic and ginger and star anise, sugar, fine spice, salt, a little bit of hoisin sauce, and some kind of bean paste. I got miso in my fridge, so I'm gonna use that. It's also helpful to have a couple skewers to help close up the duck with the fat, as well as some meat hooks to hang that boy on if you wanna hang it. Or you don't actually need to hang it. You can just let it sit on a wire rack in your fridge where there's, you need a little bit of airflow so it can dry off, basically. Okay, so let's get right to it. Garlic, ginger, just a rough chop, because we're gonna be putting that right in the duck. And that's gonna go with 5 or 7 cloves of star anise. Next, I'm gonna add some salt and brown sugar. Just mix that up there. And now I'm going to combine a couple tablespoons of hoisin with a generous spoonful of miso. Mix that boy together. Now we just need to apply them to the duck. So you're gonna wanna go in at the bigger hole in the base. Make sure, you've removed any giblets or the neck if it's in there. In this case, I didn't have any of that to remove. But yeah, I'm gonna start with my dry seasoning and try and get that in there, as much as you can. You can use gloves if you prefer, but got my dry seasonings in there. I'm gonna take a portion of my marinade and try and get that in there as well. Try and, evenly distribute it as best as you can. And then I'm going to add in my spice mixture, the garlic, the ginger and star anise. Pack that in there. Then finish off what I have left for marinade and dry seasoning. Okay, this next step, basically what we're gonna do is seal the cavity so that when we go to give it a warm bath and tighten up the skin, the water won't get inside. So all we're doing is using the excess skin here to create a nice tight seal. And then lastly, to close it off, you just go through the bone there, like that. You can see nice seal there, and then up top, kind of the same idea. Again, make sure you don't leave anything in there. Sometimes they stuff little giblets or something like that in there. I have roasted a bird before and found a bag of giblets in there afterwards on accident. So there we go. That's pretty much the initial prep for the duck before we put it in the spa or give it a hot bath. You can put these hooks on, make sure it holds together, and then we'll get it ready for the bath. So for the bath, we need 1.5 quarts of water. 3 tablespoons of maltose is ideal, but I mean, I'm guessing most of you folks don't have maltose. Like me, I don't. And I couldn't even find it at the Chinese market. So I'm just gonna use about 3 tablespoons of honey instead. Maybe 6 tablespoons. And then it calls for 70 milliliters of Chinese red vinegar. I don't have Chinese red vinegar again, so I'm just gonna use a mixture of red wine vinegar, a little bit of rice wine vinegar, and some black vinegar that I have. So we're gonna let that come to a simmer. And we don't wanna boil the heck out of this boy. We just wanna give it a nice warm bath. The legs, you see how the skin kind of, when you pour that hot liquid over it, it like seizes up a little bit. That's ultimately what we're looking for. We want that to tighten up nicely. That way it'll get it to dry out. So again, not too much. We're not trying to cook this duck. Just trying to tighten up the skin a little bit. So we're done. Set it on a tray like this, where you've got some airflow. Keep it in the fridge overnight and call it a day. Okay, so I've let my duck rest in the fridge overnight, and the skin's getting nice and tacky. You can see here, and if there's any little pieces of feather, you can kind of pull them out. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just gonna let it come to room temperature here, so that when we go to smoke it on the Weber, or roast it on the Weber, or you can just do it in the oven, it'll get nice and crispy. But yeah, now I'm gonna go wash my hands and we're gonna make the steamed buns. So for the steamed buns, we don't need too many ingredients. I've got 3.5 cups of flour here, dry active yeast, tablespoon of sugar, cup of warm water. We're gonna mix that right up. I also have a teaspoon of baking powder reserve, which after this dough rises for a bit, I'm gonna use to mix in there as well. So once you've made it into more or less a dough, then we can get it on our work surface and start kneading it. And like any dough, you know, you want it to be one homogeneous, smooth texture. So I just let this rest for a couple minutes with the bowl over the top to let it hydrate. Okay, so I've let this rest for 5 minutes here and it's nice, good texture. So I'm just gonna knead it a couple more minutes and then put it back in the warm bowl with a little bit of oil and let it rise for a couple hours. Okay, so while we wait for the coals to get hot and for the dough to rise a little bit, I'm gonna start prepping the accoutrements. Long diagonal strips, stack them up like that. Then you get this nice long thin piece that you can put in your little mini sandwich. And for the green onion, it's really similar idea. Just trying to make it as long and as thin as possible. And I also have a little ice water here that I'm gonna soak them in. What that does is just, it takes a little bite off of the green onions and then helps the cucumbers stay nice and crisp. We've got our grill all set up here. I let the coals burn down and I'm gonna spread them out on both sides so I can create a channel in the middle that will be open for indirect heat of the duck. So here we go. So I'm just gonna let it heat up for a couple minutes, all the way open, just so I can get the grill part hot before brushing it down. Okay, so I got my beautiful duck here, and I'm just gonna place him directly on the rack, right in the center where it's indirect heat, and we're gonna let it go. Should take about an hour. But the other little thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw in some of these hazelnut shells. I soaked them for 20 minutes or so, and they just give a nice little smoky depth to the bird. You don't have to do that, but You can do this in the oven like I was saying, but I like to do it on the Weber because I get nice airflow there and it gets nice mahogany crispy skin. Keep both the top and the bottom open all the time. Okay, it's been about a half an hour now. I can still see a little smoke coming out here. So I'm gonna pull this up, take a quick look. You can see we're getting some color here. I can tell that it's cooled off a bit. So I'm gonna add about 7 coals on each side and let it go for another half an hour. We've let our dough rise for a couple hours and it's over doubled in size. I am going to knead in the baking powder. So how I like to break that up. In half, roll it into a log, and then give yourself 12 pieces about yay size, which we're gonna roll into discs. Take our oil, oops, lather it up. And I'm actually gonna do the same with my bamboo steamer. And that's so when it steams, it doesn't stick together and it's gonna make a nice little pouch. So put all of them in there and steam her up. 12 is good for like 1 duck for a family of 4. Okay, after you've fit them all in your steamer here, just cover them with a lid and let it sit for 10-15 minutes before you steam them. Give them a chance to puff. Okay, now it's been a full hour. Oh man, look at that. The way that I test is I stick a meat fork in the thigh there by the bone, and then I hold it on my lip. Oh yeah, that's hot, that's burning my tongue. We're gonna pull this baby up. Okay, so the duck just came off the barbecue, looks beautiful, skin's nice and crispy. Spent an hour in there, and at this point I've got my accoutrements ready to go. And I'm just gonna take it off like this, and I will take off a breast on each side and serve that breast. This part here, I'll take the meat portion off, and we can also use that for the bones for the soup. Make a duck noodle soup tomorrow. But for the portion that we're gonna eat tonight, you're just gonna wanna cut right beside that breastbone until you get a nice piece like that. So this is the part that you wanna serve. Cut it at the angle. Look at how juicy that is. While it's still warm, take one of these. Little bit of hoisin, not too much. There it is, that's the meal.